Hi everyone, my name is Alejandra. I'm 22 years old and I am from Mazatlan, Mexico. Currently I'm living in Spain and I'll tell you the reason why I'm here and why you're watching this video. But first I'll let you know a bit more about me. I grew up in a Christian environment, but that never really changed my life. We moved a lot, so we never really had a church that was really a family to us until we moved back to Mazatlan after living in California for a few years. And we found La Misión Sagrada, which is the church that shaped us and changed us completely. A lot of that had to do with my youth pastors. They were so passionate about showing us that God was big and that He was not only the God of Mazatlan, but that He was the God of the universe. And they did that by taking us all over Mexico to conferences and camps and youth events. And each of those events constantly reminded me that I was made for so much more than the life that I was living for in high school. I remember being at a point in my life where I knew that I was living on both worlds. I would party on the weekends, but I would go to church on Sundays. And I knew I was living a double life. And it was very tiring. And I knew that God was asking me for everything. So eventually I made the choice to give up all of my life to Him. And I remember that one of the first things that He ever asked me to do in obedience was to give up the relationships that were keeping me away from Him. And that meant breaking up with my boyfriend, and that meant giving up my friends from high school. And God was so faithful to answer my obedience and to give me new friends and give me new relationships that really nurture my relationship with Him. And He was just very quick to give me purpose and to guide my life. And at that same time, my parents' relationship was very damaged and they were close to getting a divorce. But God also changed them completely and just restored their marriage, restored my relationship with them and with my other siblings. And that's just a whole nother story of redemption. Very early on in my relationship with God, He spoke to me about missions, and I didn't really know what that meant. But everyone around me said that if I wanted to be a missionary, I first needed to start where I was. And I didn't really know how to do that, but soon after that I met missionaries from the United States that had come to Mazatlan to serve in orphan care. I just asked if I could get involved in any way that I could, and it took about 4 months for them to actually answer me back and invite me to a children's home. And I was a tutor for a 12-year-old boy that didn't know how to read. That experience changed my life completely. By this point, I was in my senior year of high school and it was time for me to start looking at colleges. But my whole life plans had changed after this. So what I told my parents was that I would just take a gap year off and go to the United States and serve kids. But they basically told me I was crazy and that there was no money and that there was no way that they would just let me go off and live on my own to the US. But they said I could pray about it. And I did, and God answered me, and He gave me the opportunity to go and serve in a ministry that works with kids in vulnerable areas as a tutor. And as my senior year ended, I continued to stay very involved with Back to Back. And another way that being in this ministry changed my life was that one day I saw 2 girls that didn't really have anywhere to go on the weekends when the rest of the kids went out. So I told my parents that they could come and stay with us. And they said yes. So these girls started coming over on the weekends during my senior year, and eventually my parents opening the doors to these girls and staying over the weekends led to God asking them to quit their jobs and join the Back to Back team through the Hope program and be foster parents for teenage girls. But that's a whole nother story. So I went to Dallas, and while I was there, I continued to be involved with Back to Back, translating some of their training materials. And while I did that, I realized that I really liked it and that a lot of it had to do with psychology. So I decided that after my gap year was over, I would study psychology. I applied for a college in Monterey because that's where Back to Back started, and I figured that if that's what had brought me to study this, I should go to a place where I could continue to learn more about the ministry as well. So I did. I've been living in Monterey for almost 4 years now, and I've been involved in many different areas. Back to Back Monterey has become my community, my family. The summer after my freshman year of college, I interned with Back to Back in Haiti, and that was a completely new experience. And it set my heart on fire for missions. And I was so sure that God at any moment would just tell me to quit school and move to Haiti and just serve there the rest of my life. But he didn't. He was very clear that I needed to finish my degree first, because that was part of the things that he wanted to do with me. And it was a very hard lesson, but I decided to be obedient and stayed. And soon after that, God started to show me that even through college, I could serve him. I joined a gifted student program, and through that program, we've served for the past 2 years a lot of the children's home that Back to Back works with. So it's been awesome to see how God has changed my whole perspective on missions and has given me a purpose even while I'm still staying in my home country. At the same time that I was in college, my first years, I was also studying Bible school on Saturdays. And one day we got an invitation to go on a mission trip to Costa Rica and serve women that were prostituted. I didn't really have a heart for the cost, but I really wanted to go to Costa Rica. So I asked God to give me a heart for it if he wanted to. I didn't go on the mission trip, but that really started giving me curiosity more on the topic. I remember a few months after that inner conference, the whole time I could just hear God saying something different than he had before, and he was just asking me if I was willing to go through the darkest places in order to follow his will. And I just felt like he was asking me once again if I was saying, "Here I am, send me." And I knew it was different this time. I knew he had something specifically, but I didn't really understand why. And I just cried the whole day because I was so overwhelmed by his voice. But I said yes. And soon after that, my curiosity for human trafficking and prostitution just grew so much more. And I asked everyone around me if they knew anything on the topic, but no one really had any answers to give me. And eventually someone told me, "Hey, well, I think my church supports a missionary in Spain, and she has a ministry that works with immigrants that are in human trafficking." And in that same week, a friend from college told me that when she studied abroad in Malaga, she had friends that had worked in a ministry that served women in human trafficking. So Spain kept coming up, and I just Googled it to see what I could find, and I found this organization, and I messaged them just to see if they had any information that they could give me. And soon enough, I realized that the ministry that I had just messaged was the ministry that my friend's church supported and that my other friend had worked with while she studied abroad. So it was just crazy how God was bringing this up to my mind. And at the same time, during an internship I did through my college, I just started to learn a lot more about the topic. I worked at a women's shelter, and I met a lot of cases, and I just realized that in Mexico, no one was talking about it, no one knew anything about it, and we were a country that was huge on this. So soon enough, the ministry that I had emailed answered me, and they told me that they would be in Monterrey a few weeks from then to raise awareness in churches and universities. And I asked the staff that was coming if she wanted to go out for coffee with me and just answer my question. And she did, and that was last year. And I remember that time last year that I was just dreaming so much of being in Malaga and being a volunteer with this ministry. And I didn't really know why. I didn't understand why all of a sudden I had just this huge curiosity. I thought that God was saying me that I would just stay in Mexico and finish my degree, but I just knew that God was doing something. So at that same time, it was time for me to apply if I wanted to study abroad, and I knew that I wanted to go to Malaga and serve in this ministry. But I was basically made fun of when I tried to turn in my application, because they said, it's really hard to get in, especially if you have a psychology degree. Like, the probabilities are very low, you don't even want to try. But I said, I'll try. Like, it's come this far, I've already met the missionary, like, God can do something. So I did, and here I am now. I've been here for almost a month, and in this month I've been able to connect with this ministry. I've met the whole team, I've been in volunteer meetings, I've gone out to some of the sites that they serve, and I'm just so excited to be here. I don't really understand why I'm here. I don't understand where this is leading, but I just know that there's something going on. And when I was younger and I first started hearing on the topic of missions, I just heard of people saying, if you want to be a missionary, you need to go and have a student visa or a work visa. And I just thought that superheroes did that. And here I am now in Malaga, serving on this ministry with a student visa. And now I understand that God uses anyone. He uses the broken, the fearful, and the young. And that's why I want to share this story with you guys, because I know what it's like to be young and to be filled with dreams and know that God is putting something in your heart and not really understanding what it is. But I know that He's so faithful and He's so willing to show us the way when we decide that we want to do things at His pace. So there's my story, and I'm so glad that you guys get to be a part of this. So I want to thank you for your support and your interest in hearing my story. I know that God will show us all great things during the process, and I'm so excited to see how this will unfold. And I pray that God will fill you with dreams and desires, and that the Holy Spirit will give me words of encouragement and motivation to you guys. So tune in. Once again, I'm so excited to share the story with you guys, and I hope to meet you guys one day in person. Hola a todos, mi nombre es Alejandra, soy de México y ahorita estoy viviendo en Málaga, España. La historia de por qué estoy aquí es muy loca. Dios me ha traído hasta acá a aprender de un ministerio con la excusa de estudiar de intercambio. Me da mucho gusto poder compartir esta historia con ustedes y espero conocerlos pronto.